Hello and welcome. This is DarkFlash C275P case. At 29 liters, this is clearly not a small form factor case, but it does have a redeeming factor that made me to review this. It is that this is surprisingly inexpensive, costing just 90 Canadian rubles. In total, including tax, this is very cheap nowadays, where a PC case is almost always over $100. Therefore, I felt inclined to review this. The Silverstone Sugo 13 case on the left is 11.5 liters. The DarkFlash case is more than twice in volume, and it shows clearly. But here is a kicker. Neither case can accept a micro ATX motherboard. Well, the DarkFlash case sort of can. I will explain what's going on a bit later. For now, let's take in just how large the DarkFlash case is. This piece of paper says that this is a luxury micro ATX case. For a case that is not fully compatible with micro ATX motherboards, that's a pretty bold claim. The front I/O cables are ridiculously long. They should have been half of its length, and that should have been enough. Anyway, the fan cables come all connected. Now it's time to explain why this case is not fully compatible with micro ATX motherboards. As you can see, the motherboard stands off are for ITX motherboards. It does have a few more on the bottom, but it doesn't have anything to the side. What this means is that this case can sort of support a micro ATX motherboard with just 2 RAM slots. If you try to use a micro ATX motherboard with 4 RAM slots, not only is it going to block half of the fans, it's going to sag as well without a proper support. Additionally, it's going to be a nightmare to plug in power cables as well. Overall, a narrow micro ATX motherboard can fit. The PCI cover needs to be manually taken off by bending it back and forth. This is something you see with inexpensive PC cases. Allegedly, this saves manufacturers some money. Still, I personally dislike to see this since it can leave very pointy spots and it can start rust. The build is mostly done. I am going to say that, in spite of its above average volume this case has, it has surprisingly little space for cable management. In fact, it might be wise to use a SFX power supply. Then you might have enough space for some proper cable management. Not that it matters, however, since it has a dual chamber setup and the messy cables won't affect the performance at all. It does look pretty nice with all the RGB stuff. Let's peel off the plastic covers, shall we? Given the ample space this case has, I didn't expect any thermal issues, and there wasn't. Both CPU and GPU were perfectly fine. Well, to be honest, this case can handle much beefier setup than Ryzen 7600X and low-profile NVIDIA 4060. Speaking of GPU, the maximum length allowed for this case is 310mm. meaning almost any GPU can fit in this case. Quite frankly, the wide GPU support is why this case is so large. My only complaint about this case is the lack of space for cable management in spite of this case being 29 liters. I can overlook all other minor issues due to its low price. It does come with 3 RGB case fans as well. It's a pretty unbeatable deal, to be honest. Now, having said that, the metal part of this case is really thin, and the black panel will wobble easily when trying to take it out. Again, this is a minor issue, and given the price of the case, I am not going to count this against the case. I suppose they had to cut corners somewhere. So, overall, this is a decent case for the price. Thank you for watching.